This is the Brad and John Show. He is John Combest, Combest. He's got a website. You can check out johncombest.com. I'm Brad Hildebrand. You can check out my website. Well, actually, it's both of our websites. It's bjshow.co, and it's all about John and myself and the show and all sorts of stuff you can find out about us. You can listen to the various podcasts of the show here. Now, John, at the risk of having egg on my face, I'm going to try another phone call here. Okay, you ready for this? This guy has never been on this station before, and we're just going to see what happens here. I'm going to make this call right here, and hopefully he'll be able to hear me. One ringy dingy, as we used to always say on the old show.
Hello.
Hey, Jack Frost, do you hear me?
I can.
You can hear me. Why?
Yes.
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
This is so weird. Okay, the reason being is I'm in another studio, Jack, and I made a phone call to another person. They couldn't hear me, but you hear me fine.
Yeah, clear as a bell.
This is Jack Frost, a.k.a. one of the many characters from Christmas Traditions in downtown St. Charles.
Yes.
Jack, how you doing? We've never talked to you. See, this is the Brad and John Show. John's over there. He can't hear you because we've got some technical issues. But for those of you who've never heard Jack Frost before, Jack Frost is... Could I call you the lead character? Would that make sense? Are you like...
Well, I think Santa would probably take offense to that, so absolutely call me the lead character.
The lead character. Christmas Traditions. For those of you who have never heard of Christmas Traditions, give us the abbreviated version of what it's all about and when it's going on and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, season's greetings to all of your new listeners. But St. Charles Christmas Traditions is a nearly half-century old world Christmas holiday festival that takes place along Main Street in St. Charles. Now, people who have been to Main Street know that it's got those beautiful 200-year-old brick buildings and the gas lamps and everything. Well, you've seen nothing yet if you have not seen it at Christmas. It is decorated with live greenery, and then you get this whole celebration of Yuletide past. So you come down and you get to meet over 35 different characters, 9 caroling groups, everyone from Ebenezer Scrooge to the Sugar Plum Fairy. We have Santas from around the world who talk about how the holidays are celebrated in their home countries. And then you get to enjoy chestnuts roasted on an open fire. You hear the caroling, and all kinds of really fun and, most importantly, free activities take place. And it's a month-long event. We go until Christmas Eve, and it's really just something to be very proud of. And it's nice and old world and just a great deal of fun.
2 more weekends, and the schedule for Friday, like, for example, what's tonight?
Yes, so tonight we are here in St. Charles from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And if people like things on the naughtier side, we have our special Krampus Carnival taking over the depot, which is where some of the naughty gift givers from around the world and international traditions gather around. It's a fun mix of Halloween and Christmas, but it's very family friendly. So that's from 6 to 8:30 tonight. And then tomorrow, Saturday, we kick off with the noon Santa parade and then go until 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we are here from noon, kicking off with the Santa parade again down Main Street until 5.
So for most of us who are not from the North Pole, it's been some good weather, but for you, not so good, right?
Yeah, not so great. I've had to take a lot of chill pills, if you know what I mean, to keep from turning into a puddle. We've all learned from Frosty the Snowman's mistakes in the past, and we won't go back.
Interesting. Now, and once again, this weekend and next weekend, and the way the calendar is this year, with Christmas being on Monday, you will be there on Christmas Eve as well, too, which is a week from this coming Sunday, correct?
That's correct. So that will be our big grand finale. We'll be there on Christmas Eve, special hours, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we finish up the season with a big pep rally called the Santa Send-Off, where all the different characters will be there to wish Santa and Mrs. Claus well as they ride a horse-drawn carriage into the sunset to prepare for the big night.
Jack Frost, I appreciate your time. I'll give you a buzz a little bit after 8 o'clock. We'll put you on the other station. And quite honestly, in the other station on Westplex 107.1, I have a bone to pick with you. I'm a little bit upset with you about something. So let that...
Bring it on. I've got a cold shoulder with your name on it, Brad.
Let that simmer in your mind of what I'm going to be upset with you about. And I think you probably might even know. But that's a whole nother story. I'll talk to you in a few, okay?
Season's freezings, Brad.
Bye-bye. That guy is incredible.
Brad, you're creating controversy on this Friday.
How's that?
Right?
How am I creating controversy?
Well, I mean, you and I talked about taking days off. You
Yeah.
got Jack Frost, an American icon. You have a bone to pick with a a hero.
I do, because he has.
This is that in the thanks to Taylor Swift, everybody has an era now, and today might be your Christmas villain era.
Oh, well,
Brad. He might be in your Christmas villain era today.
He's one of the how do I put it? Jack Frost is in. He was sort of calm on that interview. When I do him on the other station, we have, shall we say, a give and take. We go back and forth.
I got you.
Where
I got you.
He will make fun of me, and I will throw things back.
He works with you. He works with you.
He's really good. Okay, now something we talked about, and quite honestly, I'm surprised there are two things in the top three that you didn't do this morning. One of which is a St. Charles County / St. Louis County story, which
marijuana stacking. Yeah.
Yes, which hit yesterday when Steve Ellman, who is the St. Charles County executive, came out and joined in a lawsuit with St. Louis County. Now, I did not know the origins of this, but this gets sort of complicated because when they put the new marijuana thing in, that they have all these tax things in the new constitutional amendment that ended up in the Missouri Constitution. One of them is when you go in to buy marijuana, and John, listen carefully because I don't want to make sure I misstate this. I think I think I've got it correctly, but you know exactly the situation. Let's say if you go in and buy $10 worth of marijuana, okay? On top of that, you'll have the local regular retail tax that you would pay if you bought a piece of furniture or whatever at a local retail store, correct?
Correct.
And in most of the St. Louis area, that's somewhere between 8 and 10%. I think most everybody's probably in the 9 area right now. Okay, then on top of the sales tax, which is the normal sales tax you'd pay for any retail purchase, you have another 6% that goes to the state, correct?
Correct.
And then there are two other taxes if you are in an incorporated area within a county, like let's say you're in St. Peters. There's a 3% that goes to St. Peters and a 3% that goes to St. Charles County. So essentially you have an additional 12% for, theoretically, a marijuana shop in St. Peters or O'Fallon or Wentzville would pay an additional 12%, the 6% state sales tax, the 6% marijuana tax. There's already the sales tax, the 3% St. Peters tax, the 3% St. Louis County tax, or St. Charles County tax. One of the marijuana dispensaries, was it North County, I believe?
It's in Florissant. Yep.
Sued the state saying, whoa. Or no, they sued St. Louis County, essentially saying, look, we'll pay the marijuana tax to Florissant, but our customers should not be getting taxed by St. Louis County. And St. Charles County has jumped in on this lawsuit, essentially saying, hey, we agree with St. Louis County. St. Louis County should get their 3%, and Florissant should get their 3%. Now, here's my stupid question. Why would the dispensary care?
I'll tell you why. So, by the way, I have 3 stories on Missouri marijuana up today at johncombest.com, so folks can follow along during the show or after the show. The reason why is because for supply and demand, if you're any industry, you want to do whatever you can to keep taxes low. So, if you're MoCan, which is the industry group for cannabis peddlers, you want as low of a tax burden as possible. So that's why they care, because Brad, to your point, if you're going in and you're buying X amount of dollars of cannabis, in some areas the tax is more than 20%.
Yeah.
So when you combine them all together, so essentially the cannabis industry wants to keep their prices, wants to keep the taxes as low as possible to encourage consumption.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but by the same token, I guess if I was the cannabis industry and I all of a sudden have this new industry which has been allowed to, shall we say, flourish in the state of Missouri, I would be saying, county, if you want your 3%, municipality, if you want your 3%, state, if you want your 6%, we can deal with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. And I get what you're saying. I do think that it's clear, and we've talked about this on the show before, Brad, is that one of the things that's universally agreed about the marijuana statewide vote is that the language was ambiguous. And it's frankly the same type of debate that legislators are having today about the personal property tax freeze for seniors.
Right.
Because if the language was more specific, it could give counties a little bit better guidance on how to go about it.
Right.
So you'll see these lawsuits all around the state, which is why I usually don't link to local stories on my website, but because it involves a statewide issue, I do. So folks should check it out. And also, Brad, you mentioned St. Charles County. St. Charles County says that they're losing out on $800,000 a year in revenue if they don't get this tax.
And you know what? Quite honestly, I thought the money would be a lot more than that. When I read $800,000, I thought to myself, that's sort of chump change, you know? I mean, you know, when you're looking at budgets, I mean, like now when you look at the federal budget, when you're talking about billions of dollars, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
it adds up over a period of time. And St. Charles, I didn't know this, but has a total of 13 dispensaries.
Yeah, St. Charles County.
I thought St. Charles County had more than 13 dispensaries. Maybe it's just because every time I drive, I see one, and I'm not a marijuana guy, so I see one and I roll my eyes. And I say, well, there's another one.
You know, the crazy thing on that is they're doing a lot of billboards, and I shouldn't say we can't, but our industry group, the National Association of Broadcasters, highly recommends we do not do advertising for marijuana places on the radio. You know about this?
Why is that? Is that because the federal law still prohibits it?
Yes, the federal law still classifies that, as a Schedule I narcotic or something like that.
That's why so many banks, and that's, you know, the banking issue is huge too, because because as long as marijuana is illegal on a federal level, you know, that then bankers have a hard time giving loans to companies. You can't go in and get a loan the same way if you would if you got a radio station. Brad has an opinion on the way banks treat radio stations.
Well,
that's a different story.
but the interesting thing there is that the bank is federally licensed, so to speak, by the FDIC, and ultimately the banks are afraid that one day the examiners will show up and say, hey, you know, you're got these people putting money in your bank that are, selling this marijuana stuff. You know what? That's illegal federally. Guess what? We're here to shut your bank down.
Yep, absolutely. And it's complete risk management.
Right.
And by the way, which is why so many of the companies want to take cash. You know, I haven't been into a dispensary, but they deal with a lot of cash, and it's been great for companies like Brinks, by the way, which has been kind of a side play if you believe in the growth of the marijuana industry. Brinks somebody has to handle all the cash that comes into these places.
Well, there's an interesting story. We've talked about this on Westplex 107.1. There was an interesting story, I think it was a couple years ago, or maybe it was just last year, where there was a lady who has, I don't know how in the world she's done this, but she's got some kind of a banking relationship in Denver where she's got a couple of banks that will accept marijuana dispensary cash. And she runs a service where she sends an armored car from Denver across, if you've ever driven that, it's quite a drive, across from Kansas into Missouri. The armored car stops at all the marijuana dispensaries, then takes that cash, drives it across the state into Colorado, into Denver, and they deposit that cash in the banks in Denver. And you know what kept happening to her armored cars?
They'd get hijacked.
They'd get pulled over in Kansas, and the Kansas sheriffs would take the money.
You're right. I heard about this.
Yes.
You're right.
They would pull over the armored cars and say, hey, what do you got in there? Well, we got cash. Where's that from? Marijuana dispensaries in Missouri.
I heard about this. One of my favorite follows on Twitter is a guy named Epan Thampy, who's a big marijuana advocate and psychedelics and all that. And I remember him talking about this and how egregious it is for Kansas to just say, nope, this cash is illegal. It's ours. Try and go and get it.
Right. They would just essentially take the money.
It's drug money. They just classified it as drug money.
They would take the money out of the armored car and say, okay, on your way. See you later. Bye. And
that's the plot line of a new show that Brad and I are developing called Topeka Vice.
Well, the crazy thing about that is it's a perfect example of how none of the government agencies are ever on the same page. You know what I'm saying? It's the point
and you know what? Especially not if you're able to grab some headlines, and if you're a law and order sheriff You say, I'm not going to want that. It reminds me of, there was like a Dukes of Hazzard episode about this, I believe, where, Roscoe P. Coltrane was talking about marijuana. And, if there's a headline to get, why wouldn't you confiscate the money?
It's just crazy stuff. If it's legal, make it legal. If it's legal for you and I to, as a dispensary owner to have a marijuana dispensary, and why can't we go down to the bank with our money and put it in the bag? No, You can't do that. But there are some banks and saying, there's at least one that I know of. Maybe we should talk about that next week. God, this show went by in a hurry.
It did.
We have to wrap it up at 7:59 and 41 seconds. John, once again, your website?
JohnCombest.com, and check it out this weekend. What I always say is miss a day, miss a lot.
And don't forget, you can always check out our show. This show will be up probably in the next hour or so on bjshow.com. We'll talk to you again on Monday. It's 8 o'clock.